Welcome to Herbally Yours, an adventure into the world of natural medicine. Here is your host, Dr. Ellen Kamhi, the natural nurse who will help you take the leap to ultimate wellness.
Greetings, and thank you for joining me, Ellen Kamhi, the natural nurse, for another edition of Herbally Yours, right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Herbally Yours brings you the latest information about the many facets in the world of natural living. Today, we are so happy to have as our guest Heather Methes. Perhaps I didn't speak her last name right, but we'll ask her about that. But she is the author of a beautiful book called Paid to Be Perfect, a guide to eating, looking, and feeling your best while maintaining your body's natural size at any size or any age. Heather was a model. She started modeling, and she's still a model. She started in 1988, and she continued modeling professionally after graduating from Ohio State University in 1993. And then she signed her first contract with a major national retailer. After 10 years as a fit model, she retired to become a mom, and that was in 2008. But she came out of retirement in 2016 at the age of 46 to continue fit modeling for the same company at the exact measurements she was in her 20s, which is quite a feat. Not because she was under contract, because she had developed a healthy attitude towards life and found wonderful methods to keep her weight from fluctuating and to maintain her fitness. So her book is Paid to Be Perfect. Thank you so much for being our guest, Heather.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And it's Heather Methes, like Johnny.
Okay.
Mathis, but
That's a good way to say it.
It's confusing though, because it's an ES, and everybody thinks because it's an ES, it's pronounced differently, but it is actually pronounced the same as it would be if it was with an IS.
Well, thank you for that. Now, going back in time, first of all, let our audience know, and myself, what is a fit model? Do you just mean somebody who's fit, or is there a specific category of modeling called fit model?
That's a great question, because a lot of people think that it has something to do with fitness or with bodybuilding or with being fit, and it actually doesn't. So fit modeling essentially is working with pattern makers, designers, and merchandisers as a body twin to that company's in-house fit form to perfect the fit of a garment that will then be, graded up or down and then mass produced. So the fit form of the mannequin is the base size that they use to make clothes fit properly, that every company has. And so from this fit form, they'll generate an approved garment or a prototype that they then use to develop a standard to then create, hundreds of thousands of garments in mass production off of that standard. And they need models to fit the form, the fit form exactly, to be able to move and sit and make comments on the fit, because they can't get that information from a mannequin. So fit models give them that feedback, and that's why they need us to be exactly as close to the form as possible. So the measuring process to become a fit model involves, points of measurement all over your body, vertically and horizontally, from your neck circumference to your ankle, that match back then to the fit form. And so in my case, under contract, that meant staying within plus or minus a quarter of an inch of all the points of measurements during my contract, that, as you said, initially lasted for 10 consecutive years, from my mid-20s to my mid-30s, before I retired in my late 30s to become a mom. And then, like you said, years later, I got a call out of the blue when I was 46 to see if I was at the same measurements, and I was. So my nutrition journey, really started with modeling and with fit modeling. Specifically when I was under contract, I became interested and curious about what, different foods did to my body because of that work. But it became more than the aesthetics and more than modeling. It changed from I have to pay attention to what I'm eating to I want to know what this food does and how this food feels. And it went from these foods do this to my body measurements to these foods make me feel this way. So the point really is that I was doing all the nutrition and wellness habits that I had developed back when I was fit modeling. And that was what worked for me to not only stay at my natural size effortlessly, but most importantly, that's where I felt good and had the most energy. So my story of going back to fit model at age 46 at the exact same size as I was in my 20s and as I am right now is really how my book, Paid to Be Perfect, The Secret to Finding Your Perfect, began.
Well, it's a great message, because instead of you basing it on that exact measurement, you're basing it on what you were able to maintain that kind of measurements, but through healthy eating and healthy lifestyle.
Exactly. I always say that no one could have longevity in my career if they're struggling against nature. I mean, you can do that for a bit, but you can't do that for a decade, or longer, as in my case. So you really can't struggle against Mother Nature in modeling and in life. I mean, it's just everyone has a natural size that their body feels comfortable and that their body has energy and that their body thrives. And that's, where I try to take the reader, and that's really one of the main differences between my book and other diet or nutrition books, is that it's not about losing weight and it's not about being skinny. It's about maintaining that consistency of your natural size while enjoying what's on your plate. And it's about finding that place in your body that feels just right, where you have the most energy and an overall feeling of well-being rather than struggling to reach an arbitrary number on a scale.
Well, that's really news to me. I absolutely never heard of a fit model, because I'm just not a fashionista at all. And we're always talking here about herbs and certainly about eating healthy and wellness and exercise, but I actually never heard that term before. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. I just want to make an observation, and I'd be interested in your comment as a professional in your field. I notice only recently, over the last year or so, when you go into just any kind of big name store, it seems that the size of those models that they have the clothes on has ballooned into these huge sizes. So I wonder if that's redefining what a fit model is in the industry.
Well, there are general size standards that each company uses, to base their own fit form from, with each company's own preferred shape. That's kind of why one store has a fit you like and the other one doesn't. So there's variances. Men's sizing is more standardized, I would say, across the board, whereas women's sizing really isn't. And then there's also something that you're kind of mentioning. It's vanity sizing is it's where the companies kind of across the board collectively change sizes just based on the consumer's size. So when I started modeling back in, my first contract at 26, I was a size 8 at the exact same measurements that I am now. And then they changed my size a few years later to a size 6 to reflect what most companies most consumers, were wanting. So they change the size as the population changes. That's why, if you were to buy a size in Europe or in Asia, or even if you were to buy a size in America 20 years ago, it would be different. So yes, it does change as time changes. And that's also why in my book, I talk a lot about, we all have different sizes and shapes. And, when I first started modeling, Kate Moss, who is super, skinny and straight, she was kind of the aspiration back when I started. And now it's more of a very curvy Kardashian shape. And most of us really aren't, one extreme or the other. Most of us are somewhere in the middle, or even something completely different from those two shapes. And that's what I think, we should all kind of be able to look at within ourselves and appreciate, because every size and shape, it's really subjective. What is beautiful now or considered perfect now isn't going to be necessarily considered perfect in 10 years or in 20 years. It's always changing. So the bottom line is to really go into that store, whatever store you like, and find the size that fits you. There are some women that will only buy a certain size, but that's the size is subjective between each store. And honestly, even within that store, if you pick up the same size garment, there are tolerances in sewing that even that garment in the same exact store, if you buy a different wash in a jean, for example, it could fit slightly differently. So it's okay to size up. It's okay to get a bigger size or a smaller size. And you don't have to be married to whatever size you think you are. And it doesn't mean, you're big if you have to buy a bigger size than you think that you normally buy. I think it's the opposite. I think we all look at those sizes and the number on the scale and think, oh, we need to get to that size or that number on the scale. No, we need to turn it around and figure out what size we naturally are that feels good, that we can keep up with our kids or keep up with our grandkids, or, get up a couple flights of stairs and we're not feeling overly winded. And, what's that size? And then, who cares what the number is on the scale? You know what I mean? Use that as a guide to see what that size is, but that's not really the end goal,
Well, once, that's all interesting. And you, however, rather than perhaps what some people perceive as having to basically starve yourself to maintain a certain weight, you have wonderful tips in your book. And paid to be perfect. Well, when you mean paid to be perfect, because if you wanted to stay that fit model size, then you had to stay that particular perfect size. But you talk about strategies that you've developed and that you've used as a mother to stay fit without it being like torture, like you really want to eat this and you can't, by helping to understand what's a good, healthy diet for you, how you maintain fitness, skincare, and wellness and mindset. And those are fabulous topics. So what do you mean by the chapter, Whatever I Want?
Yeah, so I basically eat whatever I want, whenever I want. And I know people think that sounds crazy, but it's first of all finding the foods that actually make you thrive, that your body wants, not just what you want on your tongue, what you want on your palate. You know what I mean? I love sugar. So that's one of the things that I would eat nonstop if it truly made my body feel good. You know what I mean? So first of all, it's an education of really discovering the foods that your body wants, not just your mind or your palate. And finding those foods that make you feel good and make you thrive. Once you find those foods, then you truly can eat whatever you want, whenever you want. And I go about in my book describing exactly how to find those foods.
Well, that's a good thing to discuss. What is the strategy for someone to decide, I'm really going to tune into what my body wants? Now, I'll tell you one thing that I train people to use is actually using a pendulum or some other kinds of self-testing technique. But what is the strategy that you're talking about?
Well, I have a list. What I did, back in my modeling days was I kind of created this mental list of, okay, fit modeling is not only, you're a certain size. So that's one aspect of it that people think could be incredibly challenging. But not only that, it's physical work. You're standing there for 8 hours a day with perfect posture, people all around you pinning and poking. And, so it's physical work. So when I was, within my contract, when I was trying to figure out what worked for me, I needed foods to get through the day as well. So I made a mental list, back when I was figuring all this out, when I was, really getting deep into nutrition. And I discovered the foods that actually got me through the day, that nourished my body and that felt good, that kept me at my natural size effortlessly. And so in my book, I go through the steps of how to do that. So, you start off with a list, a list of what foods you're eating, how they make you feel, pay close attention. And you kind of continue that list as you read throughout the chapters.
So that's a really good thing to go into a little bit more deeply. Let someone decide that they want to test certain foods. So you're making a conscious decision to investigate which foods, how they change how you feel. So what are steps someone can take to even do that?
Well, first, before you do anything, you need to make a decision how you want to feel period, the end. Okay. Do you want to feel, tired? Do you want to feel sluggish? Do you want to feel energetic? Do you want to feel like, if you eat your foods, you're hungry an hour later, or do you want to feel satiated after you eat until, several hours until your next meal, so you need to really get clear about how you want to feel before you even make the list. And then once you start making the list, it's important to read my book or read, there's so much information out there about nutrition. So read a reputable, I have to say a reputable website about nutrition. You really have to educate yourself about nutrition because you can't just eat Skittles for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and check off, Skittles make me feel this way. You know what I mean? You need to have, a balanced, amount of macronutrients for your body.
Because you brought that up, I have to tell a little story. Because one of my tricks that I always give my clients when they are on increasing the health of their diet journey is we talk about the rainbow diet. Mm-hmm. And their homework is to take index cards and colored markers. And every time they put anything in their mouth, they put that color on the index card. And overall, you want to create a rainbow in the day, over a day's time. And one client of mine actually came back. It was a guy, and he showed me all his cards. They were all rainbows. I said, wow, that's fabulous. You must have really increased your fruits and vegetables. He said, no, I ate Skittles every day. So that reminded me of that.
That's but even on that is so funny, and that's So you can cheat in any way you want to.
Right.
I love sugar. I would eat sugar for breakfast, lunch, and dinner if it truly made my body thrive. If I could work out the way I wanted to work out, but I can't. I know that. So it does require education, including you can't eat Skittles for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but you also can't just eat kale for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, even though kale is super healthy. You like you said, you need about, so education is important, while you're going through your list. And what I also suggest is that, especially if you're not eating a diet mostly containing clean whole plant foods, that whatever processed foods you are eating, you at least wait to eat those until you get, many clean whole foods in, because once you start eating a bunch of processed foods, it's going to be hard to kind of determine what those feelings are. And I explain all that in depth in my book too, because I know that probably sounds a little bit like skimming the surface, but the way your body feels when you're giving it the foods actual foods, the way your body feels when you're giving it food versus processed stuff that's not as nutritional, whatever that word is completely different. So if you're junking up your body at the get-go, starting your day with donuts and Skittles, you're not going to get as good of feedback as you would if you were starting your day with clean whole foods. And
one thing you talk about in your book as a mother, and I think this is a great technique, which I used on my kids. My kids are now 47 and 43, almost 50, but way back in the day. And you talk about it like with your child. You said, first, eat something healthy. Mm-hmm. Like, rather than saying no, they want a junk food item of some kind, you say, first, eat something healthy. That is a fabulous intervention for anyone.
Yeah, healthy foods first is really my mantra. And that's the way I close out my nutrition chapter, because, and here's the thing, as far as my book, one of the things I love about what I share, and that I think that's different from a lot of other books, is that the way I approach nutrition really requires no willpower, because, you eat what you want when you want, once you learn what works for your body by giving it the foods that give you the most innate pleasure. So when I say healthy foods first, that actually gives you more calories. You know what I mean? If you're still going to eat whatever you want to eat after that, you're going to eat more calories. So that's fine, but your body's actually going to be happier because it's actually getting some sustenance, some nutrition, and then you're giving it, the treat. So eventually, once you find out kind of what works for your body and what doesn't, without, restricting yourself, just being really aware, just an awareness, then, the treats become more like appreciated in a sense, because I really thoroughly enjoy my treats. I don't treat myself every single day, but I do treat myself at least once or twice a week, at least. And I enjoy those treats more. You don't enjoy the sugar if you're eating it on a daily basis all the time. I know because I've done it that way myself millions of times. When you really eat healthy foods and you're feeling, satiated, and then you treat yourself afterwards with whatever, and for some people it's not sugar, for some people maybe it's something fried, or maybe it's, something super salty or whatever. For me, it's sugar. It's always going to be sugar. That's just what I love. But you appreciate those more, because I don't believe you even appreciate it if that's on your daily fare and your body's not, really thanking you. You're not really feeling great. You're feeling sluggish. You're getting the sugar highs and lows because you're not giving it, the clean whole foods first and foremost.
Yeah, and there's a new word for all that junky stuff. It's also called ultra processed food.
Yes.
So all the things that are packaged and fried and everything we might call fast food and junk food really is horrible. Even as you said, they purposefully put additives in there that are addictive.
Yes, I go through in my book, we're all going to eat some processed foods. Even chopping foods technically makes them processed, So we're all going to eat some processed foods. But what you're talking about that's a great thing for you to point out, is there are some very overly highly processed foods, ultra processed foods. And those are the ones that are really going to throw your body off, for lack of a better way to explain it. It's just going to throw you off, and you're not going to really be able to even read your body to get the signals of what make it thrive and what, and what doesn't help it,
And you give some great tips, like if you can afford organic food, that's always better. Mm-hmm. And truthfully, the difference between the cost of organic and non-organic food has really changed over the decades to where they're not usually that much more expensive now. But you even give the tip of going to the Environmental Working Group, and I love that group. And they give a free Dirty Dozen list, which is those things that have the most pesticides on them. So at least you can choose those things that organic, mm-hmm. and maybe, get the regular or the conventional for ones that aren't highly sprayed. That's a wonderful tip.
Yeah, and then there's the Clean 15, which are the ones that you can just buy not organic. As well. And I have all those links on my website as well at paidtobeperfect.com. I have really all the links to all the books that I reference, as well as those links that you just mentioned too are on there.
And we have the link to paidtobeperfect.com because, after our show today, some people might hear it and they want to tell their friend to listen. So our shows are always archived, and we do have those links there. Now, what about exercise?
Yeah. So this is really funny because I just saw on my Facebook, one of those ads came on, and this woman, was saying, don't run because you're not going to, burn the same calories as, if you were to do my workout, my 30-day workout, that incorporates whatever, I don't know what she was incorporating exactly, but don't run because you're just not going to burn those calories, And, I was thinking to myself, first of all, any workout burns calories, any workout burns calories. Whatever workout brings you joy is the workout you should do. I'm just so tired of people saying, do this workout because this is the only way to work out to burn calories. First of all, it's not even just about burning calories. It's about how the workout makes you feel, and like I said, being able to get up flights of stairs or being able to move your body just as you age. We all can move our bodies as we're younger, but, I'm in my 50s now. And as you age, you need to take care of your body and you need to continue to move it if you want to be able to continue to use it, So it's not just about burning calories and it's not just about looking a certain way. It's about whatever workout you do that brings you joy, because if it doesn't, it's not something you're going to want to take 30 minutes of your day out of your life every day. So my biggest tip is, and actually this goes back to nutrition as well, your food should bring you pleasure. If it's not, you're doing it wrong. Your fitness should bring you pleasure. If it's not, you're doing it wrong. It should really bring you pleasure, and to try to do some workout that some star says you need to do because that's the only way to burn, calories as you rest. If that's not the workout that you want to do, you're not going to do it. So just don't even pay attention to it. Do whatever workout makes you happy for 30 minutes. We can all find a way that we can move our bodies for 30 minutes a day. And it doesn't have to be like your neighbor, like anybody else, or like me. For me, I like to run, and I like to do yoga, and I like to balance them out like every other day. If I tried to run every day, it's just hard on my knees. But running for me it's a moving meditation. It literally feels so good. But it doesn't feel good for everybody. And I don't expect it to feel good for everybody. And I say throughout my book, you need to find the fitness that brings you joy for 30 minutes a day. I don't like lifting heavy weights. I'll never lift heavy weights. It's just not what I like to do. If I did that every day, I would be miserable. And so I don't do it. So I think first and foremost, it's really about finding whatever way that you can move your body for 30 minutes a day. If that's simply walking, that's whatever it is, just moving your body for 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes a day. That's key.
And you have so many great tips in your book, from being a model and maintaining your model shape after all these years, but doing it in a way that makes you feel really well. And you have a wonderful chapter on skincare as well.
Yeah, the skincare is, it's really detailed because I love skincare. Some people might be a little bit like, okay, that's a lot of skincare, but it's just something that I've always, been into my whole life. I've just, ever since I used Noxzema as I was a kid, so I love skincare, and I have a lot of tips and tricks. I'm also a wimp when it comes to needles and doctors and procedures and things. So I gravitate towards, as many natural things as possible. And I like, I like a maintenance-based approach versus trying to fix what's broken. So, a lot of the things I recommend are serums. I love, vitamin C serum, hyaluronic, retinols are my favorite. I love retinols, but you do have to go easy with retinols depending on your skin type. There's a lot of different ones out there. Again, on my website, I have suggestions that I use, but skincare is so individual. I do share everything that I do, which is a lot of different things.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for being our guest, Heather, and for sharing so much information that you have in your book, Paid to Be Perfect, a guide to eating, looking, and feeling your best while maintaining your body's natural size at any size and any age. It's very individualized, an easy program that anyone can incorporate to feel their best. So thank you so much for being our guest.
Thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in again to Herbal Yours, produced in the studios of 90.3 WHPC, Nassau Community College, Garden City, New York. For further information, you can email us at whpc@ncc.edu. This is your host, Ellen Kamhi at naturalnurse.com, inviting you to join us next week for another edition of Herbally Yours. Until then, stay healthy.